Tonight, a widow's vow. The wife of late Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny steps up to continue his fight against Vladimir Putin. Her message to Russia and the world as the EU debates new sanctions against Moscow. The Middle East conflict and the first arguments in a historic hearing at the UN's top court.
52 countries that are going to present.
Also, a community in mourning. 2 seniors and 3 children killed in a tragic house fire.
They are very nice people.
Plus, care crisis, a new warning about home supports for surging aging population.
It is a real systemic issue.
And celebrating a league of their own.
It's really cool. I think it's limitless.
Exhibiting the breakaway success of women's pro hockey.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The heartbroken widow of Vladimir Putin's fiercest foe made a pledge to the world today, speaking out for the first time since her husband died under mysterious circumstances in an Arctic prison.
Мы знаем, из-за чего конкретно Putin убил Alexei.
Appearing in a video somewhere outside of Russia, Yulia Navalny accused the Kremlin of a cover-up, insisting it's hiding Alexei Navalny's body until all traces of poison can disappear. And she also vowed to carry on his fight for a free Russia. Video from an anti-Putin TV outlet reportedly shows what may be a convoy transferring his remains from an Arctic prison, images that have not been independently verified. Russian authorities are continuing to block Navalny's family from seeing his body, and more than 400 people who've tried to pay tribute to him have been detained. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on the outrage and the grief.
Meeting with European leaders, Alexei Navalny's widow vowed to carry on her husband's fight.
Конкретно Putin.
Through her grief, posting this video, urging supporters to share her rage, accusing Russia's President Vladimir Putin of poisoning her husband and deliberately covering it up.
Они сейчас прячут его тело.
They are hiding his body and lying, she says, waiting for traces of Putin's Novichok to disappear. We will find out who committed these crimes and name names. Navalny's mother was turned away from a morgue after traveling to the Arctic penal colony to lay her son to rest, told by the Kremlin his body won't be returned for weeks. Around the world, there is outrage at Navalny's death. In Russia, hundreds dragged away. Yet despite the risk, mourners continue to defy the Kremlin and pay tribute to Navalny. Putin's fiercest critic barely survived a poisoning 3 years ago, and yet Navalny chose to go back and fight to free Russia.
And we pay tribute to the memory of Alexei Navalny, that, as you know, he was slowly murdered in a Russian jail by Putin's regime.
The European Union looking to punish Putin with sanctions and travel bans, demanding an international investigation into Navalny's sudden death. As Russia's flag now flies over the strategic Ukrainian city of Avdiivka, scoring a major victory over Ukraine's soldiers, outmanned and outgunned, U.S. President Joe Biden blasted House Republicans for blocking a military aid package for Ukraine.
The way they're walking away from the threat of Russia, the way they're walking away from NATO, the way they're walking away from meeting our obligations is just shocking.
The president said he hoped Navalny's death would put pressure on Republicans to do the right thing as the White House considers hitting Russia with more sanctions. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. Canada revealed today it will dispatch more than 800 drones to Ukraine in its fight against Russia, and they could be sent as early as the spring.
And these drones are going to help Ukraine's frontline troops assess targets and threats quickly with accuracy and effectiveness.
The made-in-Canada drones can carry ammo or cameras and can help with surveillance and intelligence gathering. They will cost about $95 million. Also today, Ukraine's president warned Western countries of the desperate need for more military aid. To the conflict in the Middle East now, Israel today issued an ultimatum. It will launch its ground operation in Rafah if hostages held by Hamas are not released by March 10th. a date that coincides with the start of the holiest month for Muslims. Here's CTV's Adrian Gobriel.
Flames tear through the charred remains of a building in Lebanon. As black smoke fills the night sky, Israel's defense ministry shares this video of an airstrike on what it called multiple Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. Israel has shown its ability to eliminate direct threats with precision, though its blatant bombardment across Gaza since the October 7th attack is once again a central focus, as a new hearing got underway today at the United Nations International Court of Justice.
The only solution consistent with international law is for this illegal occupation to come to an immediate, unconditional, and total end.
Accusing Israel of colonialism and apartheid, the Palestinian Authority foreign minister began making his argument today at what is being called a historic hearing.
Over the course of this week, there will be approximately 50 states and 3 international organizations who will be making presentations, most of them in favor of the Palestinian argument.
The proceedings are the result of a 2022 request from the UN General Assembly for the top court to issue a non-binding advisory opinion on Israel's historic handling of the Palestinian territories. The Hamas-run health authority says more than 100 bodies have been recovered in the last 24 hours, bringing the documented death toll to more than 29,000. 1.5 million Palestinians are now sheltering in Gaza's southern border city of Rafah, where there's growing fears of a ground assault, with Israel's war cabinet delivering this clear deadline.
By Ramadan, hostages are not home. The fighting will continue everywhere, to include Rafah area.
As tensions in the region reach new heights, the U.S. circulated a proposed draft resolution today calling for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza as soon as it's practical to do so. Tomorrow, the UN Security Council is expected to vote on an Arab nation-backed draft proposal calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. The U.S. has already vowed to veto it. Omar.
All right, Adrian, thank you. And fighting between tribes in the South Pacific has resulted in bloodshed. At least 26 people have been shot dead in an ambush on Papua New Guinea. The island nation recently declared a state of emergency over the violence. A Saskatchewan town with a population of about 1,000 people is grieving the loss of 5 members in one family. 3 children who were being cared for by 2 elderly relatives all died after a devastating fire yesterday. Police concluded today it was not suspiciously set. It happened in Davidson, Saskatchewan, halfway between Regina and Saskatoon. CTV's Keenan Sorokhan was at the scene.
A devastating scene here in Davidson as a tight-knit community is reeling from a house fire that has killed 3 boys and their great-grandparents.
I think people are just holding up the best they can. It's a small community, so everybody hurts.
Trudy Smith is one of many here trying to make sense of what happened. Neighbors noticed smoke and flames coming from this home around noon on Sunday. Davidson Fire Department responded immediately. They managed to pull an 80-year-old man and an 81-year-old woman out of the house and took them to hospital, where they later died. Once the flames were out, the remains of 3 boys were found inside. Neighbors say the oldest boy was in grade 7.
The older boy was very active in the school. Might not have been on first line of the volleyball team, but he was the first chair. And the other 2 kids were great. Nice family. Got to figure out what happened. The mom was away, so she just got back today.
People here described the children as outgoing. Many neighbors were used to seeing them playing on the street or in the backyard. The Saskatoon Firefighters Union has sent mental health supports to first responders in Davidson.
It's a tough go, but we will survive. We're a good community, so that's it.
Police tape and a temporary fence now block the scene, with plenty of RCMP remaining in the area as the investigation continues, with autopsies scheduled this week to learn exactly what happened here in Davidson Sunday afternoon. Keenan Sorokhan, CTV News, Davidson.
There is a new warning tonight, and it has to do with the demographic time bomb that will strain a healthcare system that's already buckling under pressure. CTV's Annie Bergeron Oliver on the alarm bells.
Ontario is bracing for an elderly tsunami that a new report warns could crush the healthcare system if thousands of home care workers are not urgently hired.
We have to act now, and that's really why we are ringing the alarm bells here in terms of saying your best bet is a really strong home care system to support people to live at home and stay at home where they want to be.
Within the next 6 years, Ontario's 65 and over population is expected to grow by 650,000 people, as those 75 and older grow by 350,000 people. To maintain current service levels, a new report estimates Ontario alone needs to hire at least 6,800 more personal support workers.
That's only for the home care sector. We also need a large number of people for the long-term care sector and for hospitals as well. So this is only one part of a very large puzzle that the province, I think, needs to deal with.
To keep seniors out of the hospitals and in their homes, advocates say Canada should follow the Nordic model, where support workers have better pay and more respect.
It pays well, it has pensions and benefits attached to it, and it's an area of predominant recruitment for immigration. We're doing little bits of those things, but nobody has tackled it all.
Daniel Clark knows just how difficult it can be to navigate the home care system. He says staff shortages and high demand made it nearly impossible to get his grandmother reliable care.
With my grandma, there was, certain days where there's supposed to be someone there in the morning to help out, and they weren't coming until later in the afternoon, or there's some days where she was completely missed. So it was really difficult to be something that you could really depend on and rely on.
Home Care Ontario is asking the province to spend an additional $411 million a year for the next 3 years, Omar, to better prepare the system. All right, Annie, thanks. And the young living in rental homes are dealing with strains of another kind. For months, we've been telling you about supercharged rents across the country. And now new signs those prices and that style of living may be crushing Canadians' quality of life. CTV's Heather Butts reports.
For people renting a home, it's no secret it can be a stressful experience.
Having a lack of stability in general can be extremely stressful if you don't know that you're going to be living in the same place from year to year, and not knowing that your rent is going to stay the same.
Megan Key advocates for tenants and is not surprised by a new survey from Statistics Canada suggesting renters report lower quality of life than homeowners.
I've lived in the same building for the past 7 years, and I thought that I was safe, but now even my building is being demolished to build condos.
The new data shows renters were 15% more likely to report difficulty meeting financial needs, and over 11% less likely to report high overall life satisfaction when compared with homeowners. Some of the information was compiled between 2021 and 2022, when mortgage rates and rent were even lower than today.
So they have nowhere to go if their rent becomes unaffordable, and they're stuck in a situation where it may be affordable for them, but the circumstances in which they live are not ideal.
On a day the study was released, Canada's housing minister was in Banff.
The $4.6 million that Banff will receive,
announcing agreements with 6 rural Alberta communities to help fast-track 400 homes over the next 3 years.
If you do need a house, you need a house right away.
Living in a community with a shortfall of 1,000 units, affordable housing can't come soon enough.
Renting a place used to be so easy, and it was fun as well, to go and look at houses, and now it's just very damn scary.
One key factor affecting quality of life is financial strain. Housing often takes up the biggest share of a household budget, and Canadians have been spending more of their income on these costs in recent years. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. Millions in California are taking cover tonight from a punishing winter storm pounding the state yet again. Whoa, whoa! Heavy rains, high winds, swollen rivers, and mudslides made for dangerous driving conditions, and some who ventured out needed to be rescued. Along the coastline, majestic palms collapsed on the wet soil. Almost the entire state is under multiple flood watches. Coming up.
Very disappointing. I came here for my birthday.
The labor strife shutting tourists out of the Eiffel Tower, plus a heart-stopping chairlift rescue. One One of the world's most visited landmarks is empty. The Eiffel Tower, which has seen a soaring number of visitors ahead of this year's Summer Olympics in Paris, was closed today. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin on why there's been a little less love these days in the city that celebrates it.
The Eiffel Tower, that emblem of Paris recognized the world over, was off limits to tourists today. A labor dispute shut down the landmark, scheduled to be open for business 365 days a year. A spelling error notwithstanding, the sign posted in several languages made that clear. Visitors were forced to admire the wrought iron structure from the ground and to make other plans. Disappointing for Canadian Vito Santos.
We were here in our honeymoon, and the idea was to come to France 15 years after that with our children.
Construction of this French cultural icon wrapped up in 1889. And now over 6 million tourists a year climb to the top to admire Paris and to bask in the glow of the city of love. This year, in the lead up to the Summer Olympics, officials expect at least 1 million more visitors. Workers want higher wages proportional to the increase in ticket sales, but also they demand more investment into the maintenance of the 330-meter-high structure. We believe the management is giving priority to short-term benefits over long-term conservation of the monument, said union delegate Stéphane Dieu. To know France is to know it has a long history of protest, and the Eiffel Tower has not been spared. Artists and academics staged an angry demonstration when it went up, calling it useless and monstrous. And just last year, it closed twice. In March, sweeping labor unrest over the retirement age shut it down. And the tower's workers walked out on December 27th, on the anniversary of the death of Gustave Eiffel, the civil engineer whose company designed the tower, often called the Iron Lady.
I appreciate the workers wanting to keep the tower going for the next few hundred years that it can stand.
The union says the maintenance budget could actually run out before the Olympics in July. Now, it's not clear just how long this strike will last. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Still ahead.
Connor.
The dramatic and frantic rescue of a child on an Edmonton ski hill. The fate of Ottawa's famed winter fixture and a cherished tradition may be at risk with the unusually warm weather that kept the Rideau Canal shut for most of the season. Thousands made the most of it opening today, but as CTV's Sam Haupt reports, many are wondering if it was the last day of canal skating this year.
It's been years since Violet Pyman has laced up and headed out on the Rideau Canal ice. But with the skateway open on Family Day, what better way to spend it than visiting her sister here in Ottawa?
She's going to show me all her favorite parts of Ottawa, this being one of them. So yeah, feeling great.
Like her, many came out to the skateway Monday after the National Capital Commission flooded the ice to try and improve the conditions.
I haven't been here since I was like 10-ish, so I'm just happy that it's open.
Around 2 kilometers of ice were open to the public, from Pretoria down to Bank.
It's amazing. I'm so glad it's open. The ice conditions aren't perfect, but at least it's open.
The recent warm weather has posed major challenges for canal maintenance crews. On Sunday, the canal opened for the first time during this year's Winterlude Festival, but was closed just hours later because of the snow. While ice conditions aren't ideal, they are improving.
We're super excited. We actually weren't sure if we would even be able to skate because of the weather conditions.
We heard that people were like walking the other days. It hasn't been open for a long time, and pretty happy that it's open.
Good enough for me. That's all I care about.
Winterlude may be wrapping up, but officials say they will try to keep the skateway open for as long as possible.
We don't throw the towel at this point, and we will give it the best we can.
Sam Haupt, CTV News.
Startling video to show you tonight of a rescue on a ski hill near Edmonton. It shows a child dangling from a chairlift after the child appeared to slide off the seat. Fortunately, staff rushed into action, softening the fall with a tarp. No injuries were reported, and an investigation is now underway. Glad the child is okay. And a surprise act by a legendary Canadian actor in London last night brought stars to their feet at Britain's equivalent of the Oscars. Michael J. Fox appeared on the BAFTA stage to present the award for Best Film. He has been living with Parkinson's for over 30 years.
It's such a privilege and the
BAFTA goes to, oh, I can read it, Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer swept the night with 7 wins.
I want to thank my fellow nominees and my Oppen homies.
Cillian Murphy won Best Actor for his role as Robert Oppenheimer.
Time after.
And following backlash for omitting Matthew Perry from the In Memoriam segment of the awards yesterday, the British Academy responded by saying it will recognize the actor as part of the TV awards in May. After the break, rave reviews on the ice.
I feel pretty good about it because, I just knowing that there's a chance that I might be able to do it.
A pro women's hockey league inspiring the next generation. The Professional Women's Hockey League has scored big with its fan base in its first season and is also showing promise for future talent. And now a new exhibit is honoring the trials and the triumphs of smashing barriers. Here's CTV's Sean Leathong.
From the moment this puck was dropped for their first game to when this goal was scored in front of 19,000 fans, the PWHL has been building a new reality, a reality where this is possible.
Do you want to become a professional hockey player?
Yes.
Inside the Hockey Hall of Fame, items from the PWHL's inaugural game back on January 1st are located at the end of an exhibit celebrating the history of women's hockey. But today, history isn't what fans are talking about.
It means like a future for a lot of young girls in sports. So that I played sports growing up, I didn't really have that kind of professional league to look forward to in a sense.
I feel pretty good about it because I just knowing that there's a chance that I might be able to do it.
Since the league played its first game on January 1st of this year, the future of the women's game seems brighter, selling out arenas in Canada and the United States, leading to a record-breaking crowd this past Saturday. With 19,285 fans selling out Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, the largest crowd ever to watch a women's game.
Right now, it still gives me goosebumps to even think of it. It's a future for girls and women that they not only had heroes to look up to for the Olympics, but it's a possibility now that women can play professionally and get paid to play in an arena where men have always owned.
It really just shows how much people want to see them. It's really cool.
The game in Toronto was one of 3 sellouts for the PWHL this weekend. Many inside the Hall of Fame talked about it as a much-needed change to the hockey world.
Because it's usually boys, but I'm happy to see girls.
I think finally we're evolving in women's sports and women's hockey. Finally. I think it's amazing.
I think it's limitless. And I think if it can show people what's to come and build some energy and excitement around that, there's nothing but good things.
And as the PWHL is sitting at the end of this line for women's hockey history, perhaps it's the beginning of a new chapter, one where they will take up a lot more space.
Sean Leathong, CTV News, Toronto.
Great to see and long overdue. That's a snapshot of this Monday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.